The soft glow of the restaurant's chandelier cast a warm light over the room, glinting off the polished wine glasses and pristine white tablecloths. It was the kind of place where birthdays, anniversaries, and quiet celebrations of love unfolded. For my wife, Lila, and me, it was our sanctuary. We'd first stumbled upon Vincent's Bistro 10 years ago, on our first date. The rich aroma of garlic and butter had filled the air as we shared a bottle of Merlot, laughter punctuating every bite. Over the years, we'd made it our tradition. Anniversary dinners, Valentine's nights, or just random Thursdays when we needed to feel close again. Tonight, though, everything was about to change. I arrived early, as I always did. It was our wedding anniversary, and I wanted everything to be perfect. A bottle of our favorite wine was already chilling in a silver bucket at our usual table in the corner. The staff, who knew us well, smiled warmly, offering congratulations as they brought out candles and rose petals to decorate the table. But something had been gnawing at me for weeks. The late-night texts she dismissed with a too casual laugh. The way she'd started going to yoga 3 times a week, but never seemed to break a sweat. And then there were the whispers in my gut, the feeling that something was off. I'd brushed them aside, desperate to trust her. After all, this was Lila, the woman who had once danced barefoot with me in the rain, who swore she'd love me until her last breath. Still, doubt lingered. So, I'd done something I'd never thought I'd do. I'd followed her. It didn't take long to confirm my fears. 2 weeks ago, I'd watched from my parked car as she stepped out of a strange man's sedan. She'd leaned in, laughing in that carefree way I'd thought was reserved for me, and kissed him. It felt like someone had plunged a dagger into my chest and twisted. I couldn't breathe. I'd driven home in a haze, tears blurring the road. But by the time I parked in our driveway, my grief had turned to resolve. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to confront her in some messy argument. No, if she wanted to betray me, she'd have to face the consequences. On my terms. Tonight was the night. I spotted them the moment they walked in. Lila's laughter floated across the room, and there he was, tall, smug, and holding her hand like he owned her. She didn't see me at first, tucked away in the corner. My heart raced as I watched them approach our table. The audacity of it almost made me laugh. She'd brought him here, of all places, to Vincent's, to our sacred place. They didn't notice me until they were nearly seated. Her laughter faltered when her eyes met mine. She froze, her face draining of color. He, on the other hand, had the gall to smirk, clearly mistaking me for just another guy in the room. "Brandon?" Lila stammered, her voice shaking. What are you doing here?" I leaned back in my chair, swirling the wine in my glass. "Celebrating our anniversary," I said coolly. "You remember that, don't you?" Her lover's smirk faltered. He glanced between us, realization dawning slowly. "Oh," he muttered. "Yes. Oh," I said, standing. "Why don't you join me? I already ordered enough wine for 3. Brandon," Lila's voice was barely a whisper. "Let's not do this here." "Oh, but you chose here, didn't you?" I said, my voice rising just enough to turn heads. "You thought this was your little playground, didn't you? Thought you could bring your boyfriend to the place where we built a life together and make a fool of me?" People were staring now. Lila's face turned crimson as she tried to pull her lover toward the door, but I stepped in their path. "Sit," I commanded, my voice ice. "Both of you." To my surprise, they obeyed. I'd planned for this moment meticulously. I wasn't just here to confront them. No, tonight was about exposing the truth. "Do you know what's funny?" I said, pouring wine into their glasses. "I always thought the worst thing that could happen to a man was losing his wife. Turns out it's watching her make a fool of herself with someone like you." Lila's lover bristled. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble." "Trouble?" I laughed bitterly. "You should have thought about that before you started sleeping with a married woman." "Brandon, stop," Lila pleaded. "This isn't the place." "No?" I said, raising an eyebrow. "You seem to think it was the place to parade him around. So now it's the place where everyone learns who you really are." Yeah, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the manila envelope. I'd spent days gathering evidence. Screenshots of texts, photos, receipts from hotels. I tossed it onto the table. "Go ahead," I said. "Open it." Her hands trembled as she picked up the envelope. The moment she saw its contents, she paled. Her lover leaned over to look. his face turning an ugly shade of red. You, you had me followed? She whispered. No need, I said, leaning forward. You were sloppy, and now everyone here knows it. The restaurant had gone silent. Diners watched, wide-eyed, as the drama unfolded. I should have felt embarrassed, but I didn't. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive. This is insane, her lover said, standing abruptly. I'm not sticking around for this. Is that? Oh, you're not going anywhere, I said, pulling out my phone. Because the moment you step outside, you're going to run into my friend, Detective Harris. He's very interested in the illegal dealings I uncovered while looking into you. His face went white. What are you talking about? I smiled coldly. You really should be more careful about how you transfer money. It's amazing what you can find with a little digging. Lila stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Brandon, you can't. Oh, I can, I said, standing. And I did. You wanted to destroy our marriage? Fine. But you don't get to walk away unscathed. The room was electric with tension. Her lover slumped back into his chair, defeated. Lila looked at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she whispered. I made a mistake. A mistake? I laughed, a hollow sound. No, Lila. Forgetting to buy milk is a mistake. What you did was a choice. Repeatedly. I turned to leave, but before I did, I addressed the room. For anyone wondering, I said, my voice steady, this is what betrayal looks like. Take a good look. Because trust, once broken, can never be repaired. And with that, I walked out, leaving them scrambling to explain themselves to the gawking diners and the waiting detective outside. The night air was cool against my face as I stepped onto the street. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity. I'd been betrayed, humiliated, but I'd stood up for myself. I'd taken control. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing. I'd never let anyone make me feel small again.